Hello everyone, Kelly here with Miss Jennifer. She's going to tell us a little bit about her cancer journey on Shirley's Talk TV. I hope you all enjoyed our episode yesterday that aired. I think we're going to be doing quite a few of these here, and honestly I'm seeing a lot of similarities between all of these cancer survivors. So we're going to let Miss Jennifer kind of tell her story, and we'll see where it goes. So Miss Jennifer.
So I have had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma 3 different times since 2010. 2010 was the first, second was 2015, third was 2016, and then I had to have a stem cell transplant since it came back. They really wanted me to do that after the second one, but I waited because I was thinking, well, if it doesn't come back, and literally 3 months later it was back again.
Oh my gosh.
So it's been very, very interesting, to say the least. Originally back in 2009, I had found a lump on my neck, just right below the ear. It wasn't big, it wasn't super hard, but it was something. So I went to my general practitioner at that time, and he basically blew it off and said nothing was wrong. And actually kind of questioned me as if I was a hypochondriac.
Oh my gosh.
So needless to say, I stopped going to him because I go to the doctors for normal checkups, but I've never really been a sick person at all. And I'm 52 now. That would have been 41 when all this presented itself. I just knew something wasn't right. And so I ended up going to another general practitioner, and he ran all these different tests on me. My lab work was normal. He sent me to the dentist, the allergist, because you can get enlarged lymph nodes when you're sick. A lot of people don't realize that. A lot of people don't know that the amount of lymph nodes we have in our body. Each person has about 600 to 800. And when you get sick, even like with a common cold, they will enlarge and then they will reduce back down.
So non-Hodgkin's lymphoma attacks your lymph nodes. Okay.
Yeah, and it can go into the bone and do other things as well, but it normally starts in the lymph nodes and it can spread. So he did everything that he possibly could that was in August of 2009, and then basically through September, and nobody could really find anything. So it was just weird because the lump was growing, and I would see him every 3 months. He said if anything changed, if I had any symptoms of this, that, or the other, let him know. And he was a personal family friend too, so.
How big are we talking, like this lump? Was it big enough for you to notice?
Before it was taken out, it looked like I had like half of a golf ball.
Oh my gosh.
In my, right here, yeah. So, long of the short, I have 2 boys, and my younger son said to me in September of 2010, he said, "Mom, that lump on your neck is getting bigger." So I was scheduled to go see my GP, I think like in November, and I called him and I said, "Hey, I think we need to look at this." So he got me in, did a biopsy, and he said, regardless of what the biopsy says, we need to get it taken out. It's gotten bigger than from when he previously saw it. So he sent me to a surgeon, ENT surgeon, to get it removed. And apparently that doctor, who was not very personable either, told my mom and 2 of my sisters after the surgery was over that it was cancer, but not to tell me because he wanted to get the pathology report back. So they knew, and I'm from a very large family. I'm one of 13 children, good old Catholic family.
Oh my goodness.
Born and raised in Louisville, so. But, so they didn't tell me. So that was in November when that was taken out, the beginning of November. And the following Tuesday, they do the normal, we'll let you know within 3 to 7 days. Well, the following Tuesday, my GP calls and starts talking to me. and I have no idea. I was at work. And all of a sudden he stops and he goes, oh my gosh, the other doctor that did the surgery, he didn't call you? And I was like, no. And he's like, it's cancer. And I will never forget that moment in my entire life, because the world just stopped. And you're like, oh my, this can't be happening. Like, this is a bad joke. So I had, at that time, one of my sisters was working at the company that I'm at, and I had somebody go get her, and one of our main office manager, head of accounting, is a 2-time survivor of cancer as well. So they went and got her, and she came in my office, and I was like, Mary, I was like, it's cancer. And she's like, I know. And I was like, what? She tells me the story about what he said, and he was very rude to my family while I was in, recovery. I was literally bawling, and I just stopped because I got so mad, because I was like, they had to live with this for 5 days and not tell me. And I was a little angry with them for not telling me, because it is my body.
Right. I just feel like a lot of that probably shouldn't have happened.
Right.
I don't even think they're supposed to call you and give you that information over the phone, are they?
They can.
They can?
They can, yeah, they can.
I think I'd want to be
You
in the
have to
office.
have consent.
Okay.
Each doctor does it a little bit different. So I kind of went from terribly upset to really frustrated. And she explained the story. Well, I was going to go see him the next day because I had a fairly large incision that he had to take it out. And he was going to, have it looked at or whatever. And so my mom and that particular sister went with me because they were afraid I was going to go in there and knock him out. And I felt like it. I did. So I was like sitting up on the table and kind of had my hands underneath me like. And of course he was as smug that day as he was when he did the surgery. Because he walks in and he's got my chart, and he opens it up, and he's looking through the paper, and the nurse is standing there, and he goes, where's the pathology report? And she goes, it's in there. And he takes this piece of paper and throws it at his nurse and says, that's not the pathology report. Go get me the pathology report. I was about to come unglued.
So no bedside manners, rude to the nurses.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I looked at him and I go, I don't need the pathology report. Doctor, my regular doctor, called yesterday because you didn't.
So your normal GP called, not the surgeon? Wow.
And I said, I know. And he then kind of like backed off a little bit. He's like, well, let's look at the incision, see how it's going, da 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 da. So then he starts to say, you do realize that you're going to need chemotherapy and possibly radiation. I said, my general practitioner called yesterday because you didn't and told me. So we did all that. And he then says, well, you do understand you're going to have have chemotherapy. And I was like, yes. And I had known people that had cancer already, and had been with people that had gone through radiation, gone through chemotherapy. So I was familiar with it. I tried to get out of there as quickly as possible because I was just really frustrated. And I said to him, I go, I'm going to need a copy of the pathology report for my records, because that was one thing that I learned in that process, is that
keep records of
everything, because it's overwhelming. And he kind of looked at me funny, and he handed it to me, and he goes, good luck to you, because you're going to need it, and turns around and walks away.
Oh my gosh.
I literally, so we get outside, and my mom and my sister and I looked at him and I go, he just said this cancer is really bad, didn't he?
Oh my gosh.
My sister was like, pretty much. So I couldn't help. I started laughing because I was so angry.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to upset my mom. So I was like, okay. So within the next week, I had CT scans and had PET scan, and learned that not only was it non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, it was a large B cell, which is the aggressive type, and it had metastasized to my chest and my abdomen. So it was now stage 3.
And this is back in 2009.
2010 is when we got
Okay.
the diagnosis, because I started chemotherapy in 2010. So the whole month of November, I did surgery, scans, and all that stuff, and then started chemotherapy at the beginning of December.
Oh my gosh.
So, went through all of that. Did 6 months of a drug regimen called CHOP-R, which consists of 5 drugs that you get every 21 days, I believe it was. And the side effects for me from that chemotherapy weren't terrible. I would usually go to work a day or two after, just because work was my out. And I've always been pretty stubborn, strong-headed, and I thought, if I can focus on things I can do and can control, and this that I can't control, I just have to go along with what they say.
So your employer was great through all of
Oh,
this.
they've been amazing, been very supportive and helpful, but I wanted to do my part back. And I know for some people that's not possible to go to work.
Sure.
I don't pretend to be a martyr. It was just my way of kind of, I don't want to say running away from it, but trying to
Taking your mind off of it.
well, and just feel normal.
Yeah.
Because this is a whole new normal that you can't ever explain until you do it. So, interesting enough, my hair started to fall out almost right after the first treatment. And they said, usually about 14 days or so. Well, a couple days before Christmas, I was like, I can't wake up every morning and have hair all over my pillow, and when I'm washing my hair, because I have really thick hair. It was coming out in droves. So I said, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to have a hair buds party, and we're going to do it Christmas Eve morning, because I had a good friend at the time that was cutting my hair. And we had mimosas, and they brought presents and hats for me.
We did the same thing for my mom.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was like, I want to cut it. So they had a big party
Yeah.
and they shaved it off. And
Yeah.
it was a good
So
time.
we shaved it down
Yeah.
just to like a little burr cut, and then it was much easier. And it was super weird, because when people talk about like the loss of a limb and that the sensation is still there, it's the same thing with your hair. Like, I felt like for a while it was really hard to even wear hats, because I felt like I was squishing something that wasn't there, especially the crown of your head. So
That's interesting.
that was kind of strange.
Yeah.
And I did wear ponytails a whole lot prior to, because my hair was long and thick before that too. And you just had to learn to get used to it. Got a couple wigs. At times I just got tired of the wigs because they were hot, they were uncomfortable. And so I'd sometimes just do scarves.
Yeah.
And because it was during the cooler months, having those little nice hats, the little
Yeah.
beanie hats,
Sure.
those were great. And they're so soft too, as you don't realize how sensitive your head is. And,
There's no hair there.
And there's no hair.
Yeah.
You get so much colder quicker, and just things like that. So we finished up that chemotherapy in April of 2011, and went every 6 months for scans for a couple years. Ended up getting shingles because I didn't know 6 months after chemotherapy, this is what I've been told, that you should get a shingles shot because you're more prone to get it.
Wow.
Well,
Good to know. Good for people to know.
Yeah, I had it, and so I didn't know what I had, but it was really strange. My left arm just started hurting really bad, like bone pain. So I went to my new GP, and I said, something's not right here. And she's like, let's do some lab work and so on and so forth. She said, if we have to, we'll do a scan, especially with your history. I think this was 2013. And she said, does your back hurt? You know, just asking a bunch of different questions. And I did have like burning sensation that they talk about, but I just thought was because the pain that was in my arm. And it ended up that I just had a very small rash from the shingles. Well, I had waited so long because I didn't think it was anything that was a big deal, that the rash had started to fix it. It was starting to go away. She's like, so basically you've had shingles for 4 weeks. She goes, I know people that can't even last 24 hours when they first get it. And she's like, didn't it hurt? I said, yeah. I said, but when I went to the oncologist, they said I probably, because I was working out a lot at the time, that I maybe hurt it, you know, because I do the elliptical and stuff like that. And I was like, okay. So that was a bit frustrating because nobody told me that I should have done that, and I wouldn't, you know, have been susceptible to getting that. And then we went through into late 2014. Something just felt like it wasn't right. But I was scheduled to do some scans in early February. So I just thought, you know what? Don't overthink it, just wait. So I go in, do those scans, comes back in February of 15 that it's back again. This time was a follicular lymphoma, which is a slower growing lymphoma, and it was only located in the abdomen. So unfortunately, because you have so many lymph nodes in your body, some are very surface and some are very deep in your body. Well, because of the size of it, because it was about a centimeter, but it was tucked pretty far in there, that they had to wait and let it grow. Oh. So this is very common though, which I don't understand, but for a follicular lymphoma, that's what they'll do.
So was it painful as it grew? Well, that's good, I guess.
And I didn't really have any symptoms. So September, we did scans every 3 months. In February, in the summer, and then September, it had grown enough, and we went in, got it taken out. Started second chemotherapy again. I think it was November through April. So went through all of that, and that went into 2016, and finished up chemo in April of 2016, was having a scan 3 months later in July, and just a follow-up, and it was back again. But what was weird is I had this surgeon, I'm drawing a blank on what they're called. They focus on the chest area. But I had this surgeon that was just amazing, that took care of me on the third surgery. He took the imaging from a PET scan prior to my second cancer, and then the current PET scan that they had just done. And he found, it was near my heart, he found where that was there before the second chemo I had to do. So it grew back within 3 months. So then we went through, again, a lot of watching and waiting, because the other thing was it was fairly close to my heart. And again, that's dangerous to go in. So we waited again for some growth, and then they ended up going in through here, and he went out, pulled it out, and it was the non-Hodgkin's lymphoma aggressive again. So I did both a oral chemo and an oral chemo, which was really interesting. You took a pill for once a day. They were in 30-day supplements, and that pill alone for 30 days was $10,000.
Did your insurance cover it?
Oh no, actually the drug company, where whoever made it, you got a stipend. I think it was like $7,500, but we had to pay the rest. But I mean, I was like a $10,000,
Yeah.
and they FedExed it to my office.
Oh my God. I don't know how.
It's just, you can't make this stuff up, and sometimes you're like, what? Because I was like, well, how am I going to get it? And they said, well, we're going to send it to a specialty pharmacy. And this was another thing I didn't know about. So Walgreens has specialty pharmacies. There's one downtown on 4th Street, right down the street from our office, that you don't like go in there and shop. They ship them things and then they ship it out.
Wow.
Which was interesting because I figured out that was where it came to, and I'm like, well, I could have just walked down and got it. So we did that, and basically what they were trying to do is get the cancer in remission, so then we could look at a stem cell transplant. So this is going into late 2016. I start doing my research because that's another thing that I learned that I had to do. You have to be your own advocate. You have to, because insurance companies, the doctors, I think, really and truly do try, but insurance, I think, dictates so much of what they will allow them to do and what they won't allow them to do, that they don't always give their patients the best treatment. You know, it's like, let's just rule out the simple things. Well, no, go directly to the matter. Because basically, you know, for a year when this all started, the 2009 and 2010, that was a lot of money wasted.
Yeah.
And the cancer advanced. So, you know, I don't understand that. This is like playing Russian roulette with somebody's body. So that, you know, I became my own advocate. And to this day, if they say you can't, I'm like, why? I want to know why. You know, you have to explain to me.
So you now, compared to 2009, that type of person that you are now, I mean,
Yeah.
completely different.
Oh, yeah. And it's funny, you know, because as a younger person in my 20s, I've always been very personable, but I was much more of, I think, a follower than a leader. And then in my 30s, I kind of became more confident in myself. And then, of course, when I went through the cancer, it has made me so mentally and I think even physically tough, even though there's a lot of, you know, side effects that I still have today. So I can't help but be appreciative, because you do have to find the silver lining in this. Because if you think about all the negative that comes along with it, you know, it'll put you in a place that is just not okay.
I say that all the time. I think people's mindsets are really what gets them through it.
Yeah, and it's okay to be mad, and it's okay to be sad, and it's okay to have a bad day. It is totally okay. But, you know, find yourself or surround yourself with people and things that make you happy. That is so important. And if there's somebody that's negative in your life, get rid of them. You don't need that. And I read this story. It was in the Huffington Post. It was actually an article, and it's really interesting. I'll have to. I think it's called the 5 things I didn't know when I would be diagnosed with cancer. So people out there want to look that up. It's old, like, as I found it prior to the first or during the first cancer, and it talks about all the things that you don't know are going to change, and some of those are relationships. Some of it is you as a person. You know, it's just different. But I do appreciate that, because I appreciate the person I've become. I believe that I look out more for others now. I've become a cancer advocate for one of my best friends who's got a very, very rare breast cancer right now. And been with her since the beginning, and I will do anything in my power to help her, to fix it. You know, and your hands are tied on certain things, but literally, I would do anything. And I've done that multiple times for people that I've come across now, and was on the board of directors for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society at one time. But giving back to people and groups, organizations such as yourself, people need to do that. You know, show appreciation, show you care, because you don't know what you may think is just a little bit of help could be life-changing for someone else.
Sure.
And, you know, from the minute we met you guys, I was like, oh my gosh, I love this organization. You know, anything I can do to help. And I remember meeting Mike and telling him, I'm like, you know, hey, when y'all were at the office, I said, you need something, you tell me.
Yeah.
I'll do it.
I mean, that's what I told the lady yesterday too, coming in and doing these interviews, and you know, hopefully our YouTube takes off and you know, people are enjoying these. But Mike is real big. I mean, and so are we, about getting that type of information out, because people don't know, and they don't have advocates.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of them don't.
No.
And doctors, I mean, they're there to do a job. They don't necessarily, you know, they don't know how to help.
Yeah. And speaking of that, that's another thing that I noticed throughout each one of these cancers at different times, obviously running across tons of different people, and some people were by themselves. And I had, because I come from a large family and I have a great group of friends, I mean, I could sometimes have 5 or 6 people come throughout the day during my chemos, because I was there all day.
Yeah.
And one particular friend would actually go and try to engage conversation because she knew that person was alone.
That's so sad.
Yeah, and it's so hard. That's not something you do by yourself.
No.
I mean, there's a ton of illnesses out there you shouldn't have to do by yourself. But that is something that, I mean, you're sitting there watching a bag drip into your body that's basically poison. And so it can be very mentally challenging. So then, in late 2016, you know, I was advised that I should start to look at the stem cell transplant. So we started out, I have family over in Raleigh that lives about 20 minutes from Duke. And so I went over there and we did a visit with them. Of course, checked with my insurance to make sure they were an in-network provider, so on and so forth. Yes, they are. Had a very good visit with them, overwhelming, but good, because it was just so much information to take in. But I was like, okay, you know, my brother and his wife were like, you can stay here with us, we'll take care of you, we'll get a caregiving team, you know, so they weren't responsible all the time. So we had people coming in from out of town to help out. I get back home from that visit with them. The insurance says, no, we made a mistake. We don't cover Duke as an in-network. And I'm like, great. So I was like, where can I go? Well, so then I started to literally, there's a website out there for stem cell transplant that'll show you every location in the country that does stem cell transplants, what type they do, because there's 2 types. There's an auto and an allo. An auto is your own stem cells. Allo is a donor. I didn't know that.
Which one did you need?
I did an auto.
Okay.
And there's a reason. I have a reason behind that. So they said you can go to Vanderbilt. So I go to Vanderbilt. My mom, my sister-in-law from Raleigh flies in, meets us in Nashville, goes see this doctor, and he basically was like, you can't do the auto. You have to do the allo. And I was like, no, I don't have to. I don't. You have a perfect opportunity. You have 12 brothers and sisters. There's very, very likelihood that one of them is going to be a match. And I was like, listen, that's asking. And several of them immediately stepped up to the plate, which I knew they would. But my fear was, what if I got their stem cells and something went wrong? That them having to, something that they gave me, did it hurt me more? And I couldn't do that. I just couldn't. The other thing was too, is that the auto transplant takes about 3 months. The allo takes 6. And you have a lot more risk of Graves' versus host disease, all these different things. The hospitalization is 30 days, whereas I was in there 8, 9 days for the chemotherapy part. I just was not impressed with the doctor and his pushiness to make me do something that I didn't want to do. So I just told him, I said, we'll get back to you. So we went and grabbed some lunch, and at this point I was defeated. I was like, why is it that every turn there's just something that slaps you in the face? So we're sitting there at lunch and my phone rings. It's my insurance company, and they call and say,
Duke can take you?
Duke is in network.
Yay.
And I was like, this is a sign.
Oh my gosh.
So, it was the best feeling ever. So then you have to go through the process of, all the insurance stuff. There's a lot of pre-testing you have to do, yada, yada, yada. So pretty much got all that set up, which it took a while. And on New Year's Eve, flew down there because originally I was going to start in the first week of January. There was some hold up with some other insurance stuff. So got pushed back. And then we started on, I want to say it was like January 21st or 22nd is when we started all the process, because at the time I had a port. Well, they don't use a port when they do transplant. They use a PICC line. So I had to get that taken out and get the PICC line, which the PICC lines are, God love anybody that has one of those, because I hated it. Because you have to be careful when you're taking a shower, you have to cover it up, it's impossible to cover up, and it's just annoying. I mean, those 3 little things are just hanging there. But it is what it is. So we did all that, and then we started the process of what they call apheresis, and I always say that wrong, so forgive me if but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. So apheresis is when you go in, so the clinics that you go for a stem cell transplant are literally like hospitals, except for you're there for the day. So you go in, and they literally hook you up to this machine that on this side has going in, and on this side it's coming out, and it's going into a bag. So what they're doing is they're taking out your red, your platelets, or your red, your white, and pulling out what they need for the cells, the stem cells, and put them in a bag. And you have to collect like 10 million. So usually that can take anywhere from 2 to 4 days, just depending on how the patient's body, reacts. And they give you a booster. They give you a booster for like 4 days in a row that increases your stem cells.
And so this is continuous for 2 to 4 days?
It was about 5 or 6 hours a day.
Okay.
Yeah, but it was so weird because it made like your body vibrate.
Oh.
It was bizarre.
Technology and modern medicine is insane.
So I was like, oh, okay, if this is part of that, no, this is not fun. So we did that, and then they give you a day or 2 of rest, and then you get admitted into Duke at the actual hospital. You go into a very special unit. It literally is 4 sets of doors deep. Each one has to close before you go to the next section, because it has to be so clean from any impurities. Even like the door to your room had some type of special vacuum that wouldn't allow germ air to come in. It was really interesting, because I was like, how, and you felt like you were locked away. And I'm not a very good having to be confined kind of person. So I was like, again, oh God, what have I done? Why am I doing this? So they start this chemo. It's called BEAM, or that's what it's short for. It's different drugs. So you would get in the morning and then in the evening, I want to say for about 4 hours each, for 6 days, 7 days, these different drugs. So she comes in the first day that I'm doing the chemo. The nurse comes in, she wheels in the thing, then it has the chemo bag hanging on it. Well, the chemo bag is covered in a bag. And I go, why? Because, you know, I've never seen that before. And she goes, oh, it's really sensitive to light. I'm like, and you're going to put that in my body?
Oh, my, it's so weird.
But you know, it's stuff like that you're like, oh, wow. Oh, gosh, what am I doing? So that experience was one time when, so apparently, you know, you can have allergic reactions and reactions to chemo drugs when you get them. They can be random and they know exactly what to do to fix it. Well, this one, all of a sudden, it was my first one I ever got for the transplant part. And all of a sudden, my head started feeling really hot, face, my hands, and all of a sudden, my chest is on fire. And I am freaking out. I'm like, it's burning a hole in my chest. It's burning a hole in my chest. And my cousin was sitting in there with me, because you can have a caregiver. They just have to, you know, mask up and everything. So the nurse is like, no, it's not, no, it's not. And I started crying. I was like, it's burning a hole in my chest. You've got to stop. So they finally get a mirror and let me look at it to see that my chest is not on fire. And then I think they gave me some Ativan to chill me out. Because then I was like, oh, okay.
Oh, my gosh.
So that was really that time, but the rest of the chemo, you know, it was fine, because they do so many pre-meds and post-meds to try to keep you from getting sick. So I did okay. Then the final day of chemo, they come in and they start making you eat popsicles. And I was like, why do I have to eat popsicles? And they said, because this particular drug crystallizes in your body. And I'm like, what?
So a popsicle cures that.
So I ate like 5 popsicles. I had a blue mouth, looked like a Smurf.
Oh my gosh.
But I was like, yes, ma'am, I'll do it. So we finished that, and then the next day I got to go home, and they give you a little bit of a break. I can't remember how many days that was. So you normally crash, and when I say crash, that's when people that have any types of chemos, you know, can feel good maybe for a couple of days after, and then they start to feel bad, or they feel bad the day after. So this crash that they said you bottom out. I mean, it's bad. So of course, not ever getting really sick from chemo, I was like, yeah, sure. I'm gonna be fine. And they said it usually takes about 14 days before you hit rock bottom. All your counts, your red, your white, your platelet are all done. You'd like have none. So they give you blood transfusions to help with stuff. But I need to go back. So in 2 days, I crashed. And literally, I'll never forget, because you have to go to the clinic every day. They see what your weight is, they take your blood, and they give you back things that your body is lacking through IVs and pills. So they took me down there for my treatments that day. I'd never had to sit in a wheelchair before. I literally was like, get me a wheelchair. I can't walk from here to the door. I was crying. I was like, you've got to make this stop. I quit. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm out. I'm going home. And they're like, you can't quit. And I'm like, yes, I can. I'm dying. It was horrible. And the nurse is like, you can't quit. You're like one of our best patients. I'm like, well, thanks a lot. But so that was really difficult, because I did go to a place that I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to survive this. Like, this is going to kill me. And then you just get so sick. So I ended up losing I think it was 21 pounds in less than 30 days. But that's what happened, because you just get so weak. You can't eat certain things, well, pretty much anything. Everything that anybody touches for you, they have to have gloves on. Like say you had a baked potato, the baked potato had to be washed off with vinegar and water. There was a whole list of foods you couldn't even touch, just due to bacteria and germs that potentially could be in them that can make you sick. So they basically build you back up again until your numbers and your counts get back to where you're supposed to be, and then you end up, getting released from the program. So I'm going in another time for, one of my treatments, and I had a bad headache. So we're sitting there, and all of a sudden the doctor goes, well, we're going to order you an MRI. And they send me over for an MRI, literally right then and there, take you over. I mean, they do everything spot on. There's not a whole lot of waiting. If anything is waiting, it's because insurance has backed it up. But they are top notch, first class. Anything that you need, your caregivers, they treat them just as well as they treat the patient. So overall, the experience of all that was amazing, and I can't say enough about them. So me and my cousin she was my caregiver that day, go over and get the MRI and come back, and literally I'm sitting in the chair and they rehook me up, and like 30 minutes later he comes in and he's like, you have something in your brain. And I'm like, what? And it was hard to understand. And my cousin and I were like, what? And I was like, there's no way I have something in my brain. I just got chemo that could kill 17 horses. So I was freaked out about that. Then I had to go see a neurologist while I was there, so that kind of held me up a little bit too, and delay of being able to go back home. Well, it ended up that they think that at some point, maybe during a surgery, that maybe had some type of small stroke.
Wow.
Because it just looked like, and I saw it, I mean, it looked like 5 little dots, and it's right back here in the brain. So now they watch it.
So it doesn't affect you overall?
I don't know.
That you know of,
yeah. So that was interesting. And, again, it goes back to when you think that things are going in a positive direction, it's like, bam, something hits you in the face. So ended up, I got home back here to Louisville at the end of April, or beginning of April. And then, would go back to Duke basically every 3 months for checkups and scans and all that good stuff. And then I have a really good little oncologist here team that I just asked Duke, I said, in this year, especially with COVID and a lot of things going
you all
on,
work together
could they just do whatever testing from here for me? So luckily they were like, yeah, we can do that.
Where did you get your treatment here?
Norton Cancer Institute.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
My niece actually works down there.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love them. The nurses
they're
there
amazing.
are amazing. And that's another thing. You develop these personal relationships with these doctors, with these nurses that are, taking care of you. So now where we are is I'm actually due to have a scan coming up here. They're working on getting it scheduled, and due to insurance, it's taking a little bit of time.
So as of now, you're cancer-free?
We don't know. There's just, I have some issues that we don't know what they're stemming from. And two, if it's not, you have long-term effects from cancer treatments, stem cell transplant too, that you can get other diseases and other things down the road. So you just have to watch and report, tell them, be very honest about this, and this, even though you may think it's not a big deal, because I really tried to not complain and to not put it in my head that, oh, this particular feeling that I'm having, it'll go away. I did that, and I've done it pretty much all the time, and I've learned now that I can't do that because I'm putting myself at greater risk. And mentally what it does to you. That was the other thing that I never thought that it would, the fear it puts in you, you know, of the cancer coming back, and psychologically. One of the things that I did for that was each oncologist has a behavioral oncologist, a psychologist, and I found that going, mine is a female, particularly to talk to, because there's just certain things that while your family and your friends listen and they care, they just can't quite grasp. And so that it was another thing that has been very, very helpful to me. And I do encourage people to do that and seek that out. I didn't know about it at first.
I haven't heard of that either.
Yeah, so they're literally one of the doctors in the office or one side of the floor, but she's been amazing to help me through a lot of anxiety. You know, a couple things I've developed, and it's super strange. I love to fly in an airplane. Don't put me in a car for 10 hours. I just get too wound up. But I'm like very claustrophobic now. So I get real weird about being in a closed space. I was never like that before. And dealing with a lot of anxiety issues and fears and things like that I didn't really used to have. And they say it's all just part of it's what happens. So
the stem cell seemed to work though.
I think so.
The
yes.
transplant?
So far, I have had a couple CTs where some stuff has shown up, but it was too small to do anything about. So again, we watch. I don't know now, I kind of gotten to a point that if it were if it comes back again, I'd think long and hard about what I would do. Because you get to a point that going through these processes, it's just too much. And it's not giving up, but it's living out your life. And enjoying what time you do have left on this earth. I mean, we all, cancer or no cancer, you just don't know. So I tend to focus more on that because I'm trying not to live in fear of the other shoe dropping. And it's a very good possibility. I mean, you can get other cancers, and especially from stem cell transplant. And they can come back right away, and they can come back in years, and you develop heart issues. There's just so many different things that happen to you. So I try to maintain what it is that I'm getting older, what it is that these drugs have done to me and my body, versus, is the cancer back?
So I asked this yesterday too. I don't know if you have children or not, but is this type of cancer, is it hereditary? I mean,
they say it is not, but I have two boys.
Okay.
They're 33 and 23, and they say leukemia and lymphomas supposedly are not hereditary. I find that very hard to believe. My dad has chronic lymphocytic leukemia, which he was diagnosed with in 2005. But has never had to receive any treatment because it hadn't progressed. Because with leukemia, it's staged from a 0 to a 4. And then lymphomas are staged a 1 to a 4. So his was at a 0. And so he just goes and gets checkups, but he's never had to receive any treatment. But 1 in 3, 1 in 4 people develop cancer, and I'm one of 13 children.
I was going to say, so no siblings have anything?
That we're aware of. And I say that to them, and they're like, why way to be Debbie Downer? And I'm like, no, it's called real life.
Yeah.
So, but that amazes me. But at the same time, if we got that good luck of the draw, that it's just my dad and I'm okay with that. Because I don't want anybody to ever have to go through what I've been through. I don't. And even on my worst enemy, I just, it's tough. It's financially just wrecking. Physically, mentally. There's just so many things that happen that you could never anticipate. And to go through it over and over and over again, it's like, oh.
We say it all the time. People say, you should have planned for a rainy day. You can't plan for that.
Yeah.
You cannot. I mean, there's just no.
No.
Yeah.
No, you can't.
People don't understand.
I'm just going to store away $750,000 to pay for my stem cell transplant that I'm going to need in 2017.
Yeah. I mean, people don't understand until they go through it.
Yeah.
It's just.
Yeah. I mean, 30 days, one drug, $10,000.
I know.
Each one of my chemos, because that was.
You said $750,000 for your stem cell transplant? Oh my gosh.
Yep.
I don't know how that's even possible.
Yep. And that was the other thing, going back to the insurance part, maneuvering through all of that. It was mind-boggling. And literally, there's been several times that the insurance, because there's been times where I've had 2 and 3 scans a year. Well, last year I had to have one at the beginning, and then I had one in the fall. And that one in the fall, they delayed for months. And when I called the insurance company, they were like, it was under review. And I go,
this is your life.
I said, who wants to go have a CAT scan?
Yeah.
I go, I think today I'll go do that. Nobody wants to do this. I said, and I was furious because I have yelled. I'm sure there's customer service reps that are like, mean lady online too. But you have to.
I mean, you're talking waiting a few months for this to be reviewed. That's somebody's life.
Yeah.
I mean, they might not have a few months to wait.
Right. Well, I mean, and my perfect example is what I went through from 2009 to 2010. Would it have been as bad of cancer had somebody addressed it sooner?
Yeah.
And, that part is frustrating and scary to think that there's somebody sitting at a desk somewhere that's like, I don't think that's really necessary. We just won't do that today.
Oh, my gosh.
And you hate, I know that a customer service rep is just doing her job. I know that. But I also know that these executives and upper management at these places are making millions of dollars.
Absolutely.
And you're making millions of dollars off of people like me. Another thing, being that I hadn't really had any medical issues prior to this situation at all, strep throat, just little things. You think about, I've worked since I was 16 years old, and I've paid insurance since I was 16 years old. And so there was 20-something years that my claims were little to none.
Yeah, never even used it.
Yeah. So I that part really, really frustrates me because it's not like this is something I'm choosing. I didn't decide to go skydiving and broke my body in 1,000 pieces.
We talk about it all the time. It's people like you that don't take advantage of the system. You pay into it every single year, and the one time you need to use it, they just act like it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, it just makes me sick. I'm glad Mike's not here because he'd be fuming. We hear it every day.
Yeah, and I've been told similar stories as well from other friends and people that have had to deal with cancer. And even, again, with illness too. I mean, I've seen it over and over again. But I think going back to the point of just being your own advocate, and if you don't know how to do that, reach out to somebody. Because if there was one thing that I would do if I changed or were to change careers, I would love to be an advocate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I know how to push to get the answers. And if you just say, well, they said they'd call me back, well, you're going to be waiting.
Yeah.
And that time is ticking. So you need to choose. Doctors and nurses and health, people that work in the health insurance industry, people that create these drugs, they're all human beings too. And one of the things that I say to them is, what if this was you or your family member? Would you do something different?
Absolutely, they would.
Yeah. Yeah. So we will see. here in a couple weeks what's going on, and I'll just continue to keep moving forward and hoping that, you know, we can do whatever we can to help Shirley's Way. We think it is an outstanding organization.
Well, we appreciate that.
Yeah, and I have subscribed to the YouTube channel, and I do purchase the raffles and stuff when I can. And yeah, well, it's good because I see what you're doing, and you know, going back to my dear friend that is sick right now, she has a very, very rare, and she got sent to MD Anderson for a clinical trial, and it ended at the beginning of this year, and it ended up the cancer advanced a little bit, so she got kicked out of the trial. But she's been going nonstop since September of 2018. I sent it for her.
That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy, and to watch her, you know, when we talk, she'll say you know, she's not a complainer. She's tough. We're very much the same as far as our mannerisms, personalities. But just the little things that she says, like, God, you know, my mouth, everything tastes terrible, right? And I'm like, I'm sorry. Because you know. Yeah. And that part sucks, because you know what they're going through and you can't do anything to help. Now, I do try to find things, like I told her, I said, try lemon drops. That was one of the things that worked for me. Butterscotch. But there are, you know, over-the-counter ways that you can treat certain side effects. Obviously, always check with your doctor first before doing. I don't want anybody to get sick, or get sicker.
That's good she has you, though. I mean.
Yeah. Well, you know, she was meant to come into my life, and I believe that because you know, this was coming, and you know, I will fight tooth and nail for her, though, because I can't imagine life without her. I mean, she's like a best friend, a sister. She's amazing. She's a mom too. Yeah. And you know, I don't know, but we're doing our best we can, and she's back home and actually on another regiment right now here in Louisville. She's also a Norton Cancer Institute patient as well. She's at a different location, but love her docs. Her nurses are great. So we'll see.
Yeah.
She has a scan coming up at the end of next week to determine how things are going right now, because basically 2 steps forward, 3 steps back is what it's been for her.
It's usually how it is.
Yeah.
So you can get that one good news in your life, you know. But,
yeah.
Well, it's been amazing to talk to you.
Well, I really appreciate it, and I feel like that, you know, some people are like, why is it that you tell your story? Well, because there's somebody out there that's probably thinking some of the same things that I thought in 2009, and somebody's telling them you're fine.
Yep.
Don't accept fine.
Absolutely.
Do something about it.
So listen to your body.
Yeah.
Be your own advocate.
Absolutely.
If no one else will. Get a second opinion.
Yes.
If you don't feel comfortable with the doctor's diagnosis, or you think that there's something wrong, get a second opinion.
Right. Because I wouldn't be here today had I not pushed forward. I wouldn't.
I mean, that's amazing things to hear. So.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much,
Thank you
Jennifer.
so much. We appreciate it. And we look forward to helping you all in any way we can.
Yep. Thank you all. Hope you all liked this episode of Shirley Talk TV. Make sure to subscribe and check our videos next week.